Welcome to Legal Lens, the official podcast of GR Kai College of Law. I'm Harshad Bandodkar, Assistant Professor, and the host for this third episode of our official podcast. And today we have with us one of the prominent social activists in Goa, Sir Roland Martins, who is a social activist and also the co-coordinator of Goa's Civic and Consumer Action Network. In short, it is known as GOACAN. It is a voluntary consumer organization which promotes civic and consumer rights and has set up consumer forums in different villages at the state level. Sir has also initiated a new initiative called as Young Civic Consumer Movement YCM to promote civic and consumer rights on the campus by setting up consumer welfare clubs in schools, high secondaries and colleges all over Goa. Sir is a member of Goa State Consumer Protection Council and the Consumer Conciliation Committee of the Department of Civil Supplies and Consumer Affairs Government of Goa. I wholeheartedly welcome you, sir, for today's podcast. And the podcast for today, the title for the podcast is Consumer Rights and Legal Aid. So, to begin with, sir,
Yes.
Tell us something about your journey.
Yes.
How you started your journey in terms of fighting for consumers' rights or advocating for the rights of consumers.
Actually, to be frank about it, in fact, this question many times has been raised with me, and I always look back and I think about the start. And the start happened in my town of Mapsa in North Goa, wherein one day some of the high secondary teachers came to me and said, because they knew I was involved in the student movement and social activism, and said, we'd like to talk to you. I said, what? And they said, we have this problem with LPG cylinders. That when we go to ask for our refill of the cylinders, we get very bad treatment. So I said, oh, I didn't know about this. And they said, there is a showroom in so place. So I said, okay, I will just go and see. So when I went to that showroom and looked around and began to sort of understand the issue, I was shocked to realize that the kind of information that should have been there to the consumers about only this one product of LPG gas cylinder was not available. And the most horrible thing was that all consumers were given a small chit which is put in a plastic bag, and that was their identity. So I said to these teachers, I said, we'll just meet one day and we'll go in a delegation. And we went in a delegation to the then office of the Bharat Petroleum, what we call Bharat Gas, in Panjim. And we had a discussion there, and at some point of the discussion, the then territory manager asked me, where is the showroom? And I was startled, and I said, if
this is their company's
yes,
own showroom.
His own showroom, and if he is asking us, where is the showroom? I was startled, and I said, that means there's something more to this. And then I said, is there not a document that we should get saying that, I'm a consumer, etc. He rang the bell, he called one secretary, and he said, sir, these booklets and all have been sent to Mapsa, 5,000 copies. So I said, can you show us? And he showed us that domestic LPG gas card. It's a booklet, now it is red in color, and at that time it was blue, and the cost was 2 rupees. So we were 5 of us, so we removed 10 rupees, and we took out 5 copies of that book. And I tell you, frankly, that when I came home that day,
This was how many years back?
This was in 1991.
So almost 24, 25 years back.
Yeah, I think more.
More than that.
Yeah, close to,
Yes.
to be. So at that time, I said to them that, we need to do something. And if nothing else, first of all, we need to be aware of ourselves and guide people. So at that time, it was a very informal kind of initiative. It was called Mapsa Consumers Guidance Forum.
Okay.
And it was surprising with the little activity we did, that then what we call was the State Consumer Court. I think Professor Dinesh was there from South Goa. He got in touch and he said, I would like to come for your program. So as I started looking at things, and I began to realize that there's so much that a consumer needs to know. And that there was an act, Consumer Protection Act 1986. So this was 91, hardly some 5 years later the act, this activity happened. So if, there are 2 things that happened at that time. One was the fact that they were teachers, which means they were in an education institution. And if they would find that they did not know their rights and responsibilities, the question came to me is that, what about the rest of the general public? And it started with a small thing. I remember I used to go every Friday, I used to go down to the school, I used to sit down there, whoever came, chit chat, whatever. And with that began the initiative. And I must tell you, lots of people keep reminding us that it was because of the campaign that we launched at that time. Subsequently, in 2002, you can say about 10 years later, uh, I launched GOACAN. So GOACAN was a network of individuals and people in that 10 years we reached out to. And after this LPG initiative, lots of people started coming to me and saying, I heard about your doing this activity, can you help me with water supply? Then after 3 months, the same person came, can you help me about telephone? I said, excuse me, weren't you the same person? I said, look, instead of you coming from, like, say, Aldona to Mopsa, you remain there. You call some of friends of yours, I will come there. And that's how we initiated many of the consumer forums we started in Pardesh. And we launched one forum in Majorda, again through some youth and all that. It was the first forum in Salsette or South Goa.
So we can say that problems related to LPG
Yes.
households
Yes.
were the starting point of GOACAN consumer movement in the state of
In
Goa.
fact, we still say it's like the flagship issues because till today, we are still tackling problems related.
Yes, I
related.
was going to come to that.
Yes.
Now, if you look at the current scenario,
Yes.
what are the significant consumer-related issues in India, or especially in Goa?
See, in the context of Goa, there are two things. One, we have to keep in mind. Everybody talks about it as a small state, which is it's just 2 districts. But the fact that we are also an international tourism destination,
Yes.
we receive nearly 1 crore annual arrivals of tourists. And next year it will be close to another 20 lakhs with the new airport opened up. So what is happening here is that the kind of issues that are coming up are 2. One is the resident population faces the issues. Then there are tourists who are coming here who are also consumers. They are facing issues. So if you look at it, there are the basic, what I would say, the basic service sector issues which are affecting people. And then because of the situation we are now in of a digital world, there are new challenges. So, linked to, for example, just to take a Android mobile phone, so many issues linked to it because that phone itself is in that sense, it's a huge kind of a challenge. And that has actually, in 2006 to be precise, after talking to our volunteers, we felt that, we need to reach out to the young population because the kind of problems that were growing, and we felt that the younger generation need to be reached out. And that's the time we launched the Young Civic and Consumer Movement,
which caters
to formation of a campus-based activity, some format like a club or a cell, like has in your own college we have now a consumer cell. And this we found has been receiving a huge response because today I find that there are students who I spoke to when they were in 8th standard. Today they are branch managers of banks and they remind me and say, sir, you spoke to us. So that's early sensitivity of the Consumer Act. This slogan, Jago Grahak Jago, I think is also contributing now to a new awakening amongst the people.
In the context of legal sense or civic sense,
Yes.
how you can define a person as a consumer?
See, I always, in the sessions that I do, I tell consumers, first you need to understand that you have rights. At this point of time, you are not in a court of law. You do not need to understand a technical so-called definition of who is a consumer. So I say to people, whether I am talking to a self-help group, or I am talking to students, or I am talking to senior citizens, I say, if you are using goods and services, you are a consumer.
It can be anyone.
Anyone. So, in fact,
he is an Indian citizen, foreigner, any person.
yes, because what happens here, the fact that even a tourist who comes to Goa, he is using services, and therefore, in his country, the consumer protection law may be very effective, awareness levels may be very heavy, high there. Here, unfortunately, we have found that people just do not even know their basic rights. So I say to people, if you are, right from the time you get up in the morning to the time you go to sleep, you are a consumer. And in a lighter vein, I always say to them that you are a consumer even when you sleep and you have dreams. Because every consumer would like to dream that I will have 4 cars, I will have a duplex bungalow. I said, there's no harm in having a dream. But the point is, when you start to implement that dream, will you check about the quality of the cement used in your duplex bungalow, or the functioning of your car which you are going to purchase? Yeah.
So moving forward,
Yes.
if you look at the laws in
Yes.
our country, what are the prominent laws which talks about consumer rights as such? We have Consumer Protection Act,
Yes,
but
yes.
apart from that,
Yeah.
which are the laws?
So even if you look at the Consumer Protection Act,
Mhm.
it was enacted in 1986. Today we have the new act in 2019. So it has taken about 30 years, odd years, even to reach this position. So this for me is a pointer that we need to articulate more. We need to make more submissions to the government and all policymakers that legislation has to come into this country, keeping in mind that we are a globalized world. So if you look at the correlated legislation, like the Food Safety and Security Standards Act, Food Safety Standards Act, or Bureau of Indian Standards Act, or we take the Legal Metrology Act. These I consider as the sister kind of pieces of
Consumer
legislation.
protection.
Yeah, which go along, and even if you look at it,
Also for that matter, RTI.
yes,
RTI.
yes, RTI, and many, therefore, that one could read it in that way. In fact, I have been now looking at the integration of, like for example, the Senior Citizens Act and Consumer Protection Act. There is a meeting point. But essentially, if we take the Ministry of Consumer Affairs, Government of India, Legal Metrology, Food Safety, and Bureau of Indian Standards, they all come under the
So whatever the Ministry of Consumer Affairs is looking into,
yeah, that itself is the, I would say, the base.
Base.
And in a place like Goa state, I think there has to be this correlation. Otherwise, what will happen is we fail to realize that food safety is also an important issue.
Important technical.
Yes. I find that people say, oh, if I know about Consumer Protection Act, it's good enough.
Yeah.
I say no. If you look at the rights, then you will see the correlation in a better way.
So if you look at the legal legislations which have been established,
Yes.
are these legislation effective enough to cater to the needs of the consumers?
See, as I look at it, they have not been publicized enough. First, so there is lack of awareness. Second thing, there is lack of enforcement.
Yes, that's what it means. If you look at consumer, people only think of Consumer Protection Act.
Yes, yes.
But there are very more correlative acts, like you said, for
Yes.
security,
Yes.
metrology.
Yes. So
which
just
people
to
don't even know about.
Correct. So just to share with you,
Yes.
I brought this leaflet,
Okay.
and if you see this leaflet, it's been produced by the Department of Legal Metrology.
Yes.
In this leaflet, there are 6 sort of components, and the reason I asked for this leaflet to be done was so that consumers get a new perspective into how they can, understand their consumer rights on a day-to-day basis. So just to give you an example, if you take again the LPG cylinder, the LPG cylinder has weight, the LPG cylinder has to have standard markings, and the LPG cylinder's fittings like a regulator, hose pipe, stove, all of them linked to be under ISI mark. So if you begin to look at it, this correlation can take the consumer's awareness ahead in a big way.
Consumers basically exercise these rights.
Yes. Now see,
Is it difficult for them or it's very easy? That's what we
yeah,
have to
so
do.
what we have tried to understand is what is the personality and the psychology of the consumer. See, a consumer in an urban area and a consumer in a rural area come from different backgrounds. So one has to first understand that the Act's rules have to be available in the language he can understand. So we have vernacular. This is one thing. Secondly, since today the social media and we have digital formats available, we are saying that this should be made available so that the young student also can access it on his mobile phone or whatever. And at the same time, through the audiovisual media and through the channels, etc., this can be reached. But as I said, each department or the service provider has to take a conscious decision that yes, this we must do. Unless that happens, access is going to be very slow. And from GOACAN, we have taken this as a very targeted campaign. We are petitioning all these departments now. And you will be surprised, the printing of leaflets, like if somebody would say, print 1,000, when we are requesting, they will straight away give you 5 to 10,000. Because they have realized that we have a whole network which is putting these leaflets out. So I think what is very important therefore is, in a synopsis, there should be information available to the consumer.
So because of moving ahead, we'll have to look at important concept like product liability and safety,
Yes.
which has which has been included in the Consumer Protection Act.
Yes.
It's a separate chapter.
Yes.
If you look at section 82 till 87,
Yes.
we have full chapter dedicated to product liability.
Yes.
So, what is this basic understanding about product liability in India?
See, what I think is people do not understand when we said there is warranty, there is guarantee given to the product. Consumers were never able to understand what it means. Even today, I find that people are not able to understand the liability on the seller, the liability on the distributor, the liability on the manufacturer or the service provider. And I think this is very, very important because beside the Consumer Protection Act, I will just give a reference. Take the Electricity Act of 2003. See, when I'm entitled to get electricity, I'm entitled to get safe electricity. I cannot be getting electricity in my residence or in my commercial establishment, which could result in spiking the system, could result in injury.
Simply set up. So if you find that a consumer has bought something which is defective,
Yes.
how can they go for redress?
Yes. So what we say to consumers first is start at the lowest level first. So if there's a complaint book, now for example in banks, post offices, the fair price shops, in all these places there are complaint books. So we are encouraging consumers first write in the complaint book.
But
Because
this is lacking, I would say.
Two things are lacking. Even now recently we have launched a campaign to see that complaint books are kept at bus stands. They would keep a complaint book but it's not numbered, it's not stamped, etc. Secondly, we say to consumers, use the helplines, use the email IDs that are given there, so that your right to be heard is ensured. So this is one very specific responsibility of the consumer to use this and then move upwards, into the next round of.
Yes. So if you look at the Consumer Protection Act, it has clauses in it where they seek to establish various kinds of bodies,
Yes.
regulatory bodies. We
Yes.
have Protection Council, we have a central authority, we
Yes.
have redressal committees,
Yes.
many more at state level, district level.
Yes.
But what is the role of these bodies?
Yeah. So to simply put it this way, see now the Consumer Act provides for Goa district councils, state councils.
State council.
Now, of course, the discussion they are of recommendatory nature, but we have found that if these meetings are given enough coverage by the media, the sheer fact that you had a meeting, you discussed some issues, itself creates an enlightenment amongst the people that okay, there is somebody who is having a discussion. The second thing we have is established and is unique to the state of Goa is the Consumer Conciliation Committee. So this is a free service offered by the Department of Civil Supply and Consumer Affairs. It's been going on for the last 20 odd years. Wherein before you go to the consumer court, if a consumer would like to access this platform, then this is possible. And gives the opportunity for a consumer to look for a settlement with the opposite party before
Before
going to the
going
consumer.
to the redress.
Yes.
So that is also we can say lack of information.
Exactly. And
consumers.
now even in the Electricity Act, there is what you have the consumer.
So let's move towards one of the important domain
Yes.
related to consumer, that is service related. Because
Yes.
you will find that a lot of services
Yes.
are being used by the consumer, such as telecom, banking. So what are the common service related issues in terms of consumer?
See, most common what we find today are the essential services like electricity, PWD water supply, banking, telecom, fair price shops, then transport, then health centers. This is the basic. And my view is that if one just gives a round of these complaints by these services, the consumer will move forward. Because if the consumer even takes these 6 or 7 odd service related issues, the sheer experience he will get or she will get of filing the complaint, accessing the system will result in heightened awareness.
So if you look at the resolving disputes,
Yes.
we have to directly approach the departments
See,
who are service providers.
See, every department has to have a grievance officer.
Okay.
We are now ensuring that they meet every Tuesday from 10 to 1 o'clock. We are.
But what about the private players?
Now, so all private players, as per their mandate, like say telecom, regulatory authority, has very clearly demarcated that every telecom service provider has to have quarterly meetings of the consumers. Unfortunately, the consumer doesn't know this, and the company.
They are not bothered.
Exactly. So it works two ways, and we are constantly doing this. We run 60 days, 30 days campaigns to heighten this awareness about the facilities available, platforms available. It may be an email ID, it may be a complaint book, it may be an adalat. So this is what is required for the
So
customer.
suppose moving towards the next part, we have seen there is rapid rise in terms of e-commerce
Yes.
or consumption of products through internet.
Yes.
And we will see that there are a lot of websites and a lot of service providers who engage the consumers through internet. And it is projected that the supply or the demand for e-commerce will cross more than $200 billion
Yes.
by 2026.
Right.
So it is an expanding domain, we can call
Very
it.
true.
And you will find that now young generation, the Gen Z, what we call
Yes.
it, are mostly engaged in e-commerce. They
Very
purchase their products through e-commerce.
Very true.
They won't go to the vendor directly.
Yes.
They will try to get the product through e-commerce websites. Now, what are the major concerns in terms of using e-commerce? Because you will find that each and every day,
Yes.
some or other consumer is duped.
Yes.
When they, I myself have been a victim.
Yes.
Wherein
Yes.
I saw pop-up ad coming
Yes.
on any social media.
Yes.
Place to order there.
Yes.
And what product you get is nothing.
Yeah. So what we are saying first now is before you go and access an e-commerce site, verify that it's the genuine site. See now what we have found, some branded sites or well-known e-commerce sites, they have been duplicated.
Yeah.
So you maybe have a dot or you may have some alphabet there,
Yeah.
and based on that, consumer just looks at the name and falls for it. Then second thing is, what is the history of that e-commerce site? Sometimes we have found an e-commerce site has just been operating for 1 month. So most of the complaints we have been receiving is, first of all, you're getting, of course, being duped because it's a fake website.
Fake website.
But the other thing is that people are getting defective products, people are getting the wrong brand, people are getting defective thing, and the challenge is to get replacement and refund.
That is not available at all.
No,
And
it
if
is
you-
available.
if
It
you-
is available.
If you ask the agents
Yes,
also, delivery
yes,
agent,
yes.
they say that it's through auction, we cannot send it back,
Yeah.
we cannot refund.
No, now what is the point is, we have found that the consumer is persistent. If the consumer says, okay, I am writing to you many times, if you do not respond to me, I will go on social media
Okay.
and share this problem of mine. We have found quick response. So it's not that there is no system. They feel that you will get tired after 1-2 emails or 1-2 WhatsApp messages, you will not pursue it. So this is what we are now sharing with students, to harness the power of the social media.
So, sir, if a person gets or buys someone product
Yes.
through e-commerce site,
Yes.
which is probably fake,
Yes.
suppose he gets the product,
Yes,
and it is of course delivered through a delivery agent.
yes,
Now, one problem which I have seen is most persistent is when you try to return it through
Yes.
the delivery agent, they
Yes.
deny it.
yes.
They don't take it at all. So, can we hold a delivery agent liable in this?
No, see, the delivery agent is basically like a courier service.
Courier service.
Okay, so the problem then is between the sender and the receiver.
Yes.
So what we say to address the e-commerce site, and e-commerce sites then sends the delivery courier person to your residence to take the product back. So it's very, very important for the consumer to keep, even like the wrapper. We say to people, when you have a defective, when you get a product, quickly don't destroy the wrapper, because all those information is there.
Intact.
Once you are happy with the product, you are using it, you can, because if you are in the process of returning, they will always ask you where is the original piece of paper, where is that delivery challan, etc. So these are some, I would say, do's and don'ts the consumer has to put in place, to get
But
rid of this.
e-commerce websites are regulated or coming under the Consumer Protection
Yes, so under the new Consumer Protection Act now,
Mm.
this has come in. In fact, recently the state of Goa has set up a committee to monitor direct selling. So slowly,
Act. Direct selling is it?
as in
Through social media. How
No,
people
there are businesses
Yeah.
which do direct selling. They directly sell to you. Okay?
Okay.
Now these are the multiple components that we are seeing, in the market, and many consumers feel that there is no regulation, but actually these are all stated in the Consumer Protection Act. Each state government has to put a mechanism in place. The law has provided for it. So monitoring committees have to be set up, nodal officers have to be appointed. So
So
this
these
is,
are some of the challenges. Which
yes.
we
So
encountered.
we as a consumer community, we have to constantly petition the government to put everything in place as provided in
So
that.
these are the prominent challenges
Yes.
which are being faced
Yes.
by the consumers
Yes.
in terms of e-commerce website. Now let's go to the next part in terms of dispute resolution. Now if you look at the Consumer Protection Act, there are various forums which have been
Yes,
set up.
yes,
The prominent one is Central Consumer Protection Authority at the
Yes.
central level.
Yes.
We don't have same authority at state level.
no,
We have something known as Consumer Protection Council. I think
Yes.
you are a member
Yes.
at the state level,
Yes.
also the district level.
Yes.
So can you tell us what are the things that the Consumer Protection Council does?
Yes.
And what is its role?
See, the Consumer Protection Council's role is to bring to the notice of the government which are the service provider departments who have not yet put systems in place. just to give another example, you know now there are a lot of EV bikes
EV bikes.
facing problems in Goa.
Yes.
So we have now petitioned the district council to call a special meeting because we found that these EV bikes, certain category of them, do not come under any regulation. They are virtually like cycles. So which means you have a battery which nobody is taking responsibility. We have found the battery only has a made in India label, but the battery is from China. And the saddest part about it, if a dealership just closes and goes, nobody even questions. So actually in this very town where we are sitting, we have received nearly 80 complaints, 80 cases.
EV bikes.
On EV bikes, the conciliation committee has been last month has been received 80 cases.
So Consumer Protection Council is giving advisory role.
It is to bring to the notice of the government where the lacunas are and which new areas have to come under the purview of.
Is whatever the council is suggesting, are these suggestions taken into account?
Yes. See, as my experience till date, I have been in the council from 91, but I found that one of the reasons the things we were recommending were not happening is because the lack of awareness among the other stakeholder departments. So we concentrated on that, and now we are finding better resolution of the issues and quicker response.
So the other part of dispute resolution is the redressal committee.
Yes.
It's like a court,
yes.
consumer court,
yes.
you would call it. Now
yes.
it's known as
commissions.
Commissions. So what is their role and how well they are functioning in the state of Goa, or let's say India,
See,
central level?
What we have found is that if the consumer commissions are to be really effective and more people would use the services of this commission, I think we need more public engagement with the panel members. So consumer realizes that it's not like the normal court. This commission would be more consumer friendly. And for example, how you have in the law colleges, you have these moot courts. I think
simulations.
Yes. So I think for similar processes started by the commission itself, engaging with the law colleges to have this in different public places. What will happen is that there will be more engagement with the consumer commissions.
So what do you think are the challenges which the consumer face in terms of accessing the justice? In terms of dispute resolution?
Yes. See, sir, there are two parts to it. We have to make the consumer feel that filing a complaint is easy. So the e-dakhal system that they have introduced now, that you can file a complaint using the internet online system. Now even that system is put in place, but it requires a lot of awareness. Second thing is the orders that are passed. They have to be widely publicized. So if my next door neighbor has got a very good order and I am aware about it, it's I'm not really getting access to that system. So this is what we are pushing for in a big way now, to publicize it.
If you look at the Consumer Protection Act, look at the penalties.
Yes.
So if you look at the punishment, it's good enough.
Right.
If a person does something which is misleading the consumer or supplying of goods which are mixed with adulterants,
yes.
or goods which are of nature which is not known at all,
yes.
ingredients and
yes.
you look at the punishments. If it is injuring the consumer, there is a punishment of 1 year plus fine is in lakhs of fines.
Yes.
If it results in death, you can also get life imprisonment,
right,
up to penalty of 10 lakhs.
Yes.
So do you think these are enough to make the service providers?
See, I would put it this way. First of all, large amount of people do not know about it. Second thing is, there is a lack of faith in the system. And so what I feel is the need of the hour is to concentrate that there is such an enforcement regime in place. There are these fines, etc., etc. And I would just like to quote here of this whole point about which you mentioned about, for example, messing around with MRP or adulteration. See, people have not gone for simple tests. Suppose I have purchased milk and I have a doubt about this milk. Where can I actually have a test done on that milk? I have purchased, now one common example I will give you, in pepper. Lots of people purchase pepper. The common thing here is to mix papaya seeds in it. Now, we have been telling consumers, if you have faced such a problem, please ask for a test. Now, this is where I feel the awareness levels have to increase.
So we can say that consumer education and consumer awareness is lacking.
Lacking.
The greatest act.
Yes. Not needs to be.
So we have seen a lot of negatives. Now we will go towards the positive sides and the legal aid perspective.
Yes.
How GOACAN as an organization
yes.
has successfully helped a lot of consumers.
Yes.
You just talk about how GOACAN functions and how it provides legal aid to consumers.
Yes.
So can you share with us some of the success stories?
See, from the effort we put in LPG, we realized one thing, that the first part that we need to win for the consumer is to get that cylinder delivered at home. So once the cylinder came to the house free of any hassles, then we went to the next stage of studying the cylinder, its marking, etc. And today we have found huge benefits out of that. So people have now realized there is something called weight, there is something called safety, there is insurance, there is expiry date. So when we took the cylinder itself as one example, we used the entire 6 rights of the Consumer Protection Act: right to safety, right to be informed, right to choice, right to be heard, right to redress, and consumer education. All the 6 rights we presented around the gas cylinder as a first item before you, because it's in every house. Now this campaign has actually brought a lot of dividends in the terms of the consumer awareness. Now what we have done is we go for regular campaigns. So we have had campaigns on telecom, we have had campaigns on helmets. For example, as you know, Goa is a very big place for road accidents.
So it has become an issue.
Yes, and we found that consumers were buying something that put on their head which looked like a helmet, substandard. So what is an ISI mark? How do you decipher which is the regulatory mark, etc. So these have been some very powerful, effective campaigns from GOACAN, and we have now launched a very important campaign, what we call consumer literacy. We have found that level of education is high, literacy is there, but what we found is there is lack of consumer literacy, and that is the ability of the consumer to read his rights and write his complaints. So this is a new campaign that we have taken up from GOACAN.
Now suppose a consumer, he has purchased something defective.
Yes.
What are the initial steps he has to take, and how Goa can help him
Yes.
in terms of legal aid, providing him any kind of help?
Yeah, so what we say to the consumer first is document the information about that product.
Evidence.
Evidence, like take a picture of your defective product.
Or a video.
Video, or take a photograph of the bill. Because many times the printouts come on the phone. You take a printout, it's on the building also. The 2 days the print is gone. So we say quickly photocopy it. And very important, put a complaint, either on email, complaint book, whatever. So start the process. And we have now introduced a very easy thing, what we say, file complaints, 4 complaints with 1 rupee. We have tied up by using the postal department, the Meghdut postcard, which is hardly 25 paisa. So we
Which
have,
I think consumers are not even knowing. Something
So we say you just write 3-4 lines on that postcard, write to that authority, put your address and post it. So 4 complaints you can file with 1 rupee. And this has caught the imagination of many students and the lay people, because they would say, oh, this is a very simple thing, I can write it and I can carry it in my bag all the time, 4 postcards. So we are also innovating now and trying to make it easy for the consumer. There's a tendency of the consumer to always give some excuse. I'll file tomorrow, I will go home and write it on email. We say, no, here's it, write and drop it in the box today itself.
So if you look at the future of our country or of our state, what policy changes would you recommend?
See, as far as I would look at the need of the hour is first of all to hold more consultations. See, to suggest to the government, even we have been engaging with the business community. I find even the business community in Goa, they have not realized that if regulatory mechanisms are put in place, it will be good for them and good for the consumers. So we are in the process now of getting, holding roundtable discussions, engaging stakeholders to say, please put forward your ideas to the government, put your wish list to the government, because we are a democracy. And therefore, if you want to get changes in the policy, changes in law, the consumer and the consumer community must articulate itself. And now we have gone to the panchayat level, municipal level. There are platforms even there to hear the voice of the consumers. It is provided in the Act. Under the Panchayat Act, there is what we call an amenities committee. Unfortunately, this has not been activated. So now presently,
you will find that the people who are there in the panchayat doesn't even know
yes.
of what this committee is all about.
So this amenities committee gives you an opportunity to raise your basic issue, water, electricity, the basic essential services before this elected body which is there in the village.
If you look at from the side of the sellers or manufacturers,
yes.
Do you think that the laws which are there
yes.
are deterrent enough? Because you will find that in India, every day you will find that in news,
yes.
something or other is coming up in terms of adulteration, defective product being
yes.
sold,
yes.
fake product being sold,
yeah.
and they pay fines and they come out.
Yes.
We have enhanced punishment also
right.
in terms
right.
of that consumer. They give enhanced punishment, but they very easily pay them up. But do you think the deterrent is missing in terms
See,
of our laws?
I think the deterrent is not the issue. I think the issue is the loopholes. So that is why we have now gone in for a new thing, what we call an analysis of the complaint and analysis of the final order, to see where the person who is into this type of business is able to slip out.
Coming to the conclusion of this podcast, some of the key takeaways of our discussion were that consumers are very lacking in terms of consumer literacy.
Yes.
That is one. We have laws in place, the forums are in place.
Yes.
Only thing is the consumers are adamant
That's true.
in terms of engaging with this kind of system which is in place. So that is the second thing. The third thing is that even after having so many laws, so many policies, consumers are facing troubles and it is ongoing issue.
Yes.
So we can come out of it only by spreading awareness.
Yes.
That was one of the greatest key takeaway from this podcast, which I can say,
Absolutely right.
that awareness is lacking.
Yes.
So what are your final thoughts on consumer rights? That
See,
last message that you want to give to the consumers?
See, my message would be that, don't wait for tomorrow. Our time has come, and the consumers in India, consumers in Goa, have to, lead from the front and start, filing your complaint, start reading your rights, and make consumer literacy as a challenge, as something that you will do every day, and share information. I think this is a very important thing. Sharing information, building networks in the family, in the community, in the neighborhood, I think will definitely take this movement ahead in leaps and bounds.
Yes. So with this sir's final message, we come to conclusion of the third episode of the Legal Lens, where the law meets insight, the official podcast of GR College.